transfer window is open and teams up and down the Premier League are making moves ahead of a monumental campaign in the Premier League. And Thomas Frank has a massive job on his hands. He's got to rebuild a squad and get Tottenham playing a style of football that's sustainable and can get them up the Premier League table. There's many issues in the Tottenham squad that need fixing, but there are some that are bigger than others. So today on the talkSPORT YouTube channel, with the help of data, I'm going to be able to find the perfect signing for Tottenham Hotspur this summer. And if you are new to the talkSPORT YouTube channel, then drop us a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and also around 80% of you watching this right now are not subscribed to the channel. And I've put a lot of work into this video, so I'd love it if you join me ahead of the brand new season. So yeah, I've done my research and I have really gone into the nitty-gritty to see what Tottenham need to improve this squad. There is a massive issue and I've identified it, gone into the absolute granular to see this. But I started by putting a tweet out saying, I need your help to know what you guys think is the most important signing for Tottenham Hotspur. You gave me names, you gave me positions, and from this and then looking into some data, I was able to identify the biggest issues. And I've done a lot of transfer videos in the last few months and sort of identified key positions and areas, but I've absolutely believe in myself that I've been able to find the player who can come in and fix Tottenham Hotspur and be that player to take us back to where we belong in the Premier League. So stay tuned to the very end to find out who that is. But we'll start with, I think, what area is the area we are looking for? Because, as we all know, we're all football fans, there's three areas. You've got your attack, your midfield, and your defence. And Tottenham last season under Ange Postecoglou had issues in two key areas. And I'd say that was the defence and the midfield. The defence, because we leaked a lot of goals, we conceded so many playing Ange ball. The midfield would get bypassed and not support the defence and not link up well with the attack. The attack was quite solid. We scored a lot of goals, but we still were not getting the most out of certain players, i.e. Dominic Solanke. So this is where my investigation began. And by using some key information that I saw from Thomas Frank's first interview at Tottenham, I think he sort of gave a clue to where Tottenham need to improve.
I think in terms of my style of play, I'll explain it a little bit now, but I rather wanna, how can you say, show it. You can talk a lot, but I think it's more what we show, what we try to do. But in few words, the intention is to play aggressive, front-footed football, and I know the ethos and the history of the club is massive on attacking football, and I think there's so much attacking talent in the squad. I'm very excited about that. They've clearly shown over the last 2 seasons that the ability to score goals is fantastic, and I'm very, very in on that. I love a team that is scoring goals, very, very big on principles, what we do on the final third in terms of creating chances, crosses, bringing balls in the box, play behind and stuff like that. I think it's key. So just want to build on that attacking football we already have here in the club. I'm a big believer. I always say this one-liner: if you don't take risk, you also take risk. So I think it's important that we take risk. And risk is, for example, if we play man-man in some situations, risk is you need to play forward. If you don't risk the ball, you can't create anything. So I'm a big believer of that. We need to be brave. The players need to be brave when we play, and they need to trust themselves. So I will do my very best to install that trust, and the players need to be brave. For me, if they lose the ball by trying, it's never a problem for me. Of course, I can react, it's natural, but they need to do that. But if they don't work hard, that I struggle more with that. So if they do everything they can and they lose the ball or they try, no problem. But it's more if they don't work hard, that's my non-negotiable. But we need to take risk. Of course, if we don't take risk, it's impossible to achieve something big. I think it's a very talented squad. I think it's a very good squad. Very excited about starting working with them. And of course, when you follow Premier League, you see the other teams. Of course, I've seen Tottenham, I've seen some some fantastic performances from the team over the last years, and I'm very excited about that. So I think there's big potential in it. But of course, I'm looking for the outside. So I'm looking forward to get to know them, to be around them, to feel them, to understand them, to work with them on a training pitch, and that's where you really get the big understanding and understand the relationships between players and how you can get the best out of them. Of course, I got an idea already. My head is spinning. How can we play? How can we put them together and all that? But looking forward to that. When I say talented, it's also it's not only the young players. It's also some of the more experienced players. How can we get the best out of them? Let's say Dominic Solanke. I'm a big fan of him in terms of his abilities. I'm sure we'll make him score a lot of goals. How can we play, Bentancur, Madison? How can we get that? But of course, the younger ones as well. I think it's all players that we need to develop and make perform on the highest level. But of course, Bergwall, Archie Gray, Odegaard, Udogie, all of them, I think have a high ceiling. There's others I haven't mentioned. I mentioned the whole squad, and I'm looking forward to it.
So as you see there, he mentions that Tottenham have a very good attack, and I agree. Brennan Johnson, Dominic Solanke, Tell. There's a lot of players already in the team who can provide goals, who can really get the team ticking over. Creativity, I think we've also got, to aplomb, Madison, Kulusevski. I think that is quite a good area. Defence, I also would say, is pretty comfortable for Tottenham because we've got quite a good few defenders. We've got a few young defenders come in, Luka Vuskovic, Mickey van der Ven. I feel like the defence is a bit easier because we've sorted with the fullbacks. We could do with maybe a couple of backup fullbacks, but obviously the future of Romero is up in the air. But by playing this style of football under Thomas Frank, I don't think there'll be much strain and as many injuries as we saw under Ange Postecoglou. And I feel like, and I sound like a broken record here, Tottenham need to be backed in this transfer market in general to really, Thomas Frank needs the tools to succeed. And that is what Simon Jordan actually said on talkSPORT the other day.
Thomas Frank is walking with a spring in his step, Simon, and why wouldn't he? Because he has been appointed Tottenham manager and goes into next season very much mindful of what the opportunity was, the scale of the opportunity that Brentford afforded him. But by goodness, he took it with both hands. And he goes into next season as a man who succeeds Ange Postecoglou. Would it be ironic, Simon, if Tottenham's serial winning era really popped, really got into top gear after the Mourinho-Conte period?
Well, Daniel's tried to find a formula, hasn't he? He's tried to find a mechanism to get Tottenham to win things, but in line with the economics that he wants to deploy, which is why the marriages that he entered into with Mourinho and Conte, resulted in divorce pretty quickly. Because they those are managers that unless you give them everything they want and then 10% on top, they're never going to be happy.
Yeah.
And that's the reasons why possibly you shouldn't employ those guys unless you're going to do that. Daniel talked about, I've seen the interviews that he's done when he's talked about, I got winners in and they didn't win. Now, he tried Espirito Santo, that was the wrong fit. Pochettino, he took a young, burgeoning, energetic manager from Southampton that had worked hard to get himself into a position where he was recognised, and Pochettino did well. There's a similarity, isn't there? Because Thomas Frank has worked the Oracle with a lesser side. So when he took Poch, people looked at it and went, not sure about that. In the same way that when Southampton took Pochettino and got rid of Nigel Atkins, everyone went, hey, right, that can't be right. Who's this fella? And then he proved his point. Now, Frank, it's not an easy job. And there's no guarantee that just because he's managed well at Brentford, and there's no guarantee that because he's a good coach, that he's going to overcome the challenges of what Tottenham Hotspur represents.
No, I agree. And we should remember it's Daniel. Do Spurs, do you think, feel like they finally found alignment between boardroom and dugout? Will he be feeling that now with Frank? Yeah, I can work with this guy.
Well, I think
this is everything.
I think there probably was alignment with Pochettino for a period of time. Nothing lasts forever. Nobody gets on or has the same vision or the same way of working. People change. The culture of football changes people. People get ahead of themselves. They get carried away with themselves. I don't suppose Mourinho started off being quite as forthright as he was. I don't suppose Conte started off being quite as unpleasant as he became.
Yeah.
And they manifest that as they get their sense of entitlement, and of course their achievements give them that sort of feeling. So with Thomas Frank, and Daniel, it's an interesting one because Thomas Frank is a very interesting character. He was very respectful of his time at Brentford, always spoke about Brentford giving him the opportunity rather than the other way around.
Exactly.
Never talked about wanting to leave Brentford, never gave it the feeling that this was a stepping stone.
Yeah.
But when the first gig has come along, he has gone.
Yes.
And it's not without risk because no appointment can eliminate risk. I like Thomas Frank, but he hasn't won anything. And there is a kind of thinking that you do want people that can win things, but Amarim's gone to United, can't beat a rug. You know, you've had Mourinho and you've had Conte in there that are proven winners that can't work within the framework.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm cautiously optimistic for it.
So I've been able to hone it down to a particular area, and that area is the midfield. I feel like the midfield is the area that we need to fix the most. That is the number one mark on the Thomas Franks, Johan Langer, Daniel Levy, Vinay Venkatesan. The number one player and position that we need to sort, because as I mentioned there about the defence and attack, you know, I think they sort of solve themselves and we've got a lot of depth there. Midfield is the issue because Thomas Frank is known for playing, you know, a few different formations, but his most notable is the 4-2-3-1, and we haven't played a 4-2-3-1 in quite long. Under Ange Postecoglou, we would play a 4-3-3, and it was quite isolating for the certain position that I think we need to improve. We obviously had a 6 and 2 8s, and the 6 is the area that we need to improve. And as Tottenham fans, I'm not, you know, teaching you anything new here. I think we all know that we need a 6. But in a 4-2-3-1, it's a little bit different. You have two sort of central defensive midfielders. One is a bit more attacking and links up with the attack. One is a bit more defensive and stays back. And from analysing the data, I believe that I don't think we need an attacking style midfielder. A lot of the players in this double pivot, you could say, can complement the other signing that we make. I think a lot of the players, Lucas Berval, Archie Gray, Rodrigo Benscore, Yves Bissouma, they can play the 8. I'm pretty confident of that. Even you could put James Maddison there and he could be distributing from deep. That area, I think, is fine. I feel like we are comfortable in that position. It's on the other side of the pitch where I think we need that player. A 6, you know, in the modern game, we've seen the likes of Declan Rice, Rodri, you know, really Gravenberch really dominate in that midfield position. They distribute, they, you know, keep the ticking going over in that midfield and start, you know, break the passing lines and start the moves off. But Tottenham haven't had that for years. Moussa Dembele comes to mind. He would obviously be quite key in that area. We all thought it was going to be maybe a Tanguy and Dembele, but that never happened. And we've also had that issue. We've had people fill in the 6, as I say, like Bentancur, Bissouma, but they're just not as good in that position. They're just not as strong, and they're good points for the team just don't help in that position. So that makes me think, so if that is the key area that we need to improve, what players come to mind? And in my last video, I highlighted, you know, some perfect signings for Thomas Frank, and I mentioned a couple of different midfielders. But as I will go on to, I feel like these signings could be problematic. I mentioned Adam Wharton at Crystal Palace. This was a player I looked into, but I think we'll come across an issue. I don't think we'll necessarily sign him. I don't think Crystal Palace will sell him this summer. I think they'll be asking for a really big fee. I think Adam Wharton is a fantastic player. He'd be really good in this position, so comfortable on the ball, but I just can't see this one happening. Then you have Carlos Baleba at Brighton. I've mentioned him before. I think he would be really strong, but similar sort of issue. I don't think we would really be able to prize him out of Brighton. And then in my recent video as well, I mentioned Wolves' Joao Gomes. Now, on reflection, I'm not sure if this transfer is viable, because if you look at it, Wolves have already sold Matheus Cunha to Manchester United and Ryan Aït-Nouri to Manchester City. Are they going to sell another tidy player like that in the same summer? I'm not so sure. Same with Palace and Brighton. They don't really necessarily need to sell the players that I've mentioned in this video, because they'll sell different assets, I think, this summer that can fund their move. So keeping this all in mind, I had a little bit of a look to see what other midfielders could fit this Thomas Frank style of play, could really, you know, cost Not too much, but quite reasonable, and we'd maybe have a fighting chance to sign. Another player I looked at was Heung-Min from Sporting, but again, I don't think he's got the best quality to really, come into this side and dominate. He is Danish, so maybe Thomas Frank could have a bit of a pull on this. But when you look at the Premier League, there's not many options. I looked in Italy, and there wasn't really many who were striking out at me. La Liga, Johnny Cardoso we had a deal for, but after watching him in the Europa Conference League final, didn't think he was that special. Atletico Madrid looked like they're going to sign him. Ligue 1, we've been sort of scorned by that. So I looked at the Bundesliga and was like, is there a player in the Bundesliga who could come in? He's a strong passer, he can keep it ticking, and he can get balls moving. The idea of the perfect six. And I believe I found that player. This guy is the diamond of the Bundesliga. He is the diamond of the German national team in the future. People are actually calling him the next Toni Kroos, and I feel like that comparison would be absolutely fantastic. He has been linked with a move to Real Madrid, but Real Madrid have got a lot of issues to solve of their own. And I feel like, with their midfield already, it's quite complex and there's a lot going on, so I can't really see if that will come off. The player in question is Angelo Stiller, who has been an absolutely fantastic player for Stuttgart. He has been an absolute revelation. And reading some reports, he recently signed a new contract extension, which was heavily reported. He signed it until 2028. And in that contract, he has a release clause worth 36 million euros, which is quite a cheap price for a player who could do it all. And if we look at his FB Rev stats, which are on the screen right now, they are an absolute picture. They are fantastic. I would absolutely do whatever Tottenham can to make this happen. And even if you look at his who scored strengths and weaknesses, he has no significant weaknesses, which is crazy. But his strengths, he's very strong at passing. He's strong at key passing, and he's strong at through balls. And his style of play plays the ball off the ground often and likes to do layoffs. This is the player we're crying out for. This is the player we've been crying out for absolute years. He is going to be the next best thing. I mean, he already probably is. He is just absolutely incredible. I am absolutely blown away by this player. And Stuttgart, to come through this team and be how he has taken the Bundesliga by storm has been incredible. Came through the Bayern Munich academy. I just feel like this is the player that needs to, before the likes of Liverpool get in there, before the likes of, Manchester City get in there, get this player signed. He is the perfect Thomas Frank player. I just don't know why Tottenham haven't done this quicker, because I just don't see what other player fixes all the problems that we have in midfield like him. And I just would love this to happen. I would absolutely adore it. And I feel like many Tottenham fans would as well. Don't get me wrong. I feel like, a Brian Mbeumo would go down well, or an Eberechi Eze. But when it comes to wingers and creators, I feel like that is an issue for later in the window. This needs to be solved ASAP. And Postecoglou had the issue. We don't want the same for Thomas Frank. But let me know in the comments down below, who do you think we should sign? Who do you reckon would be the perfect signing for Tottenham? And until next time, I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you guys pretty soon. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys later.